some terrorist had jumped in the back of the alleyway behind the house, and he just sprayed a couple rounds, and both of them hit Brian, one on the right side, one on the left side, right outside of his plate. I remember just seeing him drop, and I'm grabbing him over top of him, and I'm trying to look where he's hit, and he's just looking at me like this. So my name is Jake Edwards. I served in the Marine Corps from 2003 till 2009, and I got out as a sergeant. So I had the privilege to grow up in Central Virginia in a city called Charlottesville, right outside the Blue Ridge Mountains. Beautiful place, small town. Everyone pretty much knew each other. Life was good. We lived on a 3+ acre, not farm, but just property close to town, surrounded by a townhome community where all our friends lived, living outside, playing in the woods, playing capture the flag, riding bikes, playing football, all the sports you can imagine. Life was good until I hit the summer of 4th grade and 5th grade, and my parents divorced. And after that, life just was a massive change for year to year. I switched schools from 5th grade to 11th grade every year, different districts, different states at times. And life was tough because as a kid, for those now that are older and have our own kids, we want structure. We want consistency. We want to have a place where they can be building relationships and have those friends from year to year. And I didn't really have that. Came from a big family. I grew up LDS, so Mormon. And the challenging thing with that was when you're one of the younger kids, you kind of just get, hey, just eat, sleep, and just survive and cause less problems. So I was the second youngest. My mom and dad had 5. I had 3 sisters with them, 1 brother, and then again, a half sister later when my dad decided to, keep producing those kids. I had a group of friends that we weren't bad kids, but we definitely weren't good kids. We had this balance of trouble we would find. Some of my friends more than others. I got one friend who we grew up together, same neighborhood, and we was like a group of 5 or 6 of us. The year we graduated high school, he friggin', shot somebody in the bowling alley parking lot and didn't kill him, but he got 7 years in prison like that right off the bat at 18 years old. That was one of those things where you just kind of, before my Marine Corps time, you realize one little moment can change your entire life. And obviously I learned that later in life once I put that uniform on. But there are things, man, where you got some friends out there that did something and then they're done. 2 weeks after turning 19, 9/11 happened. And at that time I was working construction work. I was a laborer with a mason crew, bricklayers, with my stepbrother and his dad. And that's hard labor. So it helps you appreciate the energy you put into life. And 9/11 happened. And I think when I watched that second plane hit, because I came back home from a job that I was at that morning and came back, and within enough time to see the second plane hit on TV. And I think at that moment is when I kind of had this call for service of, hey, this is where I can be used in a better way than working masonry and moving cinder blocks and building mortar or making mortar. And, that hard labor job really brings perspective to life, especially as a young kid. I remember middle school seeing those Marines in uniform. And then in high school, you see the recruiters come in. Like, you're like, yo, those dudes look sharp. Like, everybody else kind of looks nasty. Those dudes look like they're ready to go. So I think the professionalism is one, but also too, as I know, there was no Marines in my family at this time yet ever. So I had 2 grandpas that were Navy in World War II. One was a doctor. One was a gunner's mate on the USS Wasp. And he was on it when he got shot. It got shot down in 1942. And he was the youngest survivor on that shipwreck. And he floated in the water for like 3 days, in and out of consciousness. And 150 sailors and Marines died in that attack. But so there's 2 Navy, and then I have uncles that were all Army in the Vietnam era. One was a Green Beret medic. His stories from Vietnam, something I knew about, but I didn't know the details. Not having any Marines in my family, it was like I was always been someone who doesn't want to be doing what someone else is doing. Like, I've never been like, I want to do what that person's doing. I've always kind of been my own way of like, I just wanted to have my own story and my own service to pick. So the Marine Corps was just definitely the one. When I went in, I had gotten a little bit of trouble. I had a car accident that I had to deal with and some property damage. And right after that got dealt with, I was like, I got to go, man. I got to get out of this small town. I had that recruiter that was supposedly in the running for the top recruiter of the whole entire Marine Corps at that time. Great guy, but he was a super pogue, like worked finance and then was a career recruiter after that for like his last 15 to 20 years. Awesome guy, great salesman. He was one of those, you come in, he's like, hey, look, y'all know this. Marine Corps veterans run 30% of S&P 500 companies. You come in the Marine Corps and you leave service, you're gonna be set up for business. You're gonna be set up for this. Like, it is the most professional service you could find. He sold me hard on it, but I was myself already prepared and sold on it. He just added that extra confirmation where I was like, I'm ready. Where do I sign, bro? Where do I sign? I wanted to be an MP because back then they had it separate where it wasn't corrections and military police all in one. It was separate, where now it's all MP and corrections are all together. I wanted to be a field MP. I wanted to be a dog trainer. And I knew that's what I wanted to do because I love animals, specifically dogs. So I tried to do that, and they were like, you got to wait till the next fiscal year for spots to open up in our RS. With that trouble I got into and just gotten off these issues, these charges, I was like, I got to get out of here soon. Like, I need to go, like, now. Because I knew myself enough where I needed to get away from my environment that I was in. So I picked combat engineer, and luckily I had a recruiter help me realize that if I really wanted that job, I'd have to go reservist to get the job. If not, I'd have to pick engineer open field, and that could be any job in the engineer field. So I went reserve combat engineer to leave right away. And it was a phenomenal ability to have the job that I actually wanted. When I couldn't get MP, I got combat engineer, and it was honestly a phenomenal job. That's why they call us pogish, because we're kind of pogues, but we're kind of pogish. The day I shipped off is when a lot of emotions came out from my mom, who had the dad who was in World War II on the ship that got sank, the USS Wasp. He ended up dying early in life at age 38. So she had a lot of emotions from that. She, learned all about that as a kid, his service. And then she also is the one that had the brother who was the Green Beret in Vietnam, who was shot twice, who was in 5 different helicopter crashes. And some of those was the only survivor. So my mom held a lot in until the day I was going to boot camp. And then it came out. And it almost made me second guess, is this worth doing right now for my bigger family? And luckily I had enough love for my mother, because she's the one who hustled every day to take care of us when our family split over those years. She was always that consistent rock for me. And I had one of my sisters out of those 4, she lost it too. As a young man, I didn't know all these stories of my grandfather and my uncle, and I still didn't know them then, but I learned more about the personal impact it had on my mom. And seeing those moments from her was something I really never saw before, because now I'm finally going to wear that uniform myself. She kind of knew what I was getting into, if that makes sense, and where I probably didn't. And I think she was just the terror of combat and war is what she grew up with from her dad and her brother. And I think she just wanted to do her best to protect me from that. So no specific moments, just in general, you see the difference of people once that time hits 0 and it's time to go. So I'm an East Coast Marine. I'm not the Hollywood Marine like some of y'all. So East Coast, Parris Island, it was a great experience. Obviously, I had no idea what I was getting into when it came to expecting, like, my recruiter didn't really set me up for what to expect on the day-to-day stuff at boot camp. I could only go off of what you could see on videos or from other folks. The best part for me was I never had ROTC, so I didn't know how to march. I shot guns a little bit as a kid, not a whole lot, but I was around guns, mostly pellet guns, BB guns. So I thought I was good at shooting stuff, shooting bottles and stuff and killing birds with my pistol, my little pellet gun pistol. Used to do that a lot. And I'm sorry to all those birds I killed, okay? Boot camp, though, I was not ready for the structure of boot camp because that just wasn't me. I played sports growing up, love baseball, love soccer, but the athletic part of boot camp is really where I shined. Before I went to boot camp, there was a pulley function. And y'all remember, like, if you're like in depth when you sign up and you're waiting to go to boot camp. And I was older, so I was almost 21. Most of the kids were like juniors in high school, maybe 17, 18 years old, and they go to these pulley functions. And I'm like, man, I ain't freaking going to those things. Those kids are like, they're like little kids. You know, I'm almost 21, so I think I'm like above that. But there's one that my recruiter was like, I need you to go to this one. It'll help you understand what boot camp's like. So they had this recruiter out there that invited a drill instructor that was off duty, that was off cycle in Parris Island. And the parents that were there were asking the drill instructor to explain, hey, we heard about this thing called the quarterdeck. Can you show us an example of what the quarterdeck's like for our sons and daughters when they're at boot camp? So this drill instructor, we're in this basement of this church at this pool function. This was like 2 months before I went to boot camp. Of course, he picks my friggin' smart ass, I was probably looking like a little douche in the corner, sitting in the front row. He's like, you, come up, as examples to use for what quarterdeck looks like. And I was dealing with some really bad allergies at the time. Like I had snot and like just wasn't feeling good. And so he's like, all right, when I tell y'all to do something, you're going to listen and do it. And you're going to transition when I tell you. So it's going to be like push now, crunches now, jumping jacks now, and I'm staring like this, like a punk, He's like, push now. And I'm like, down, crunches now. And I'm like, oh, and then as I transition to crunches, like all this snot starts coming out my nose. And I stood up and I was like, man, fuck. I was like, I ain't doing this shit. And he's like, push now. And I'm like, nah, I'm good, bro. I'm good. I ain't doing it. He was mad because I was the one refusing to do the example he's trying to show these parents and the other pulleys. So I walked back to my seat and was like, nah, man, I'm good. I ain't in boot camp yet. You can see he was like, oh, you freaking nasty little thing. I share this story because I get to boot camp and that first week that you're with holding platoon and you get there and you pick up on your real drill instructors. Who walks out on Saturday morning? None other than 2 months prior, the drill instructor who was at this pulley function, who was chewing me out, telling me to push now and all this stuff. And I was like, nah, I'm straight. I ain't in boot camp yet. He's my friggin' heavy hat drill instructor. And my heart dropped and I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like this is horrible. He's going to destroy me. Luckily my hair is shaved off now, and I'm just some bald white dude and hopefully he won't have any clue who I am. But my anxiety was like, I was like, this is how horrible could this be? How unlucky did I get that this dude off cycle who was 2 months prior at this pulley function, who I like basically joked off and was like, nah, I'm straight, yo, I ain't boot camp yet. And now he's going to have me for 3 months. I want to share this story about him because I learned a lesson here. When you really don't want something to ever come up, don't tell a friggin' soul. And I effed up and told one friggin' dude I told about the experience I had with this drill instructor 2 months prior. It got brought up in our third phase right before we graduated. And he literally treated me like dog shit for the last 2 weeks. Every time he passed me, he'd be like, some people shouldn't graduate. You nasty thing. You freaking nasty thing. But Recruit Perry is who I told about the experience with drill instructor Sergeant Williams at the pool function. We had one recruit named Angel Rodriguez. This little short dude. He looked like an Ewok, like real short. But he had really bad yuck mouth. So he was always at dental. So Rodriguez came back from dental. While he's at dental, he loved this dental hygienist. And he would talk to her about all the stuff at boot camp and all this different things. Would tell her who his platoon was, who his drill instructors were. So one night when we had drill instructor Sergeant Williams, he walked out and was going to put us to bed, and he had us all online. And he's like, I gotta share something with the platoon. I just want to let y'all know. So supposedly I have some angel in my life that my wife keeps telling me about. And he's talking about Angel Rodriguez. And he's like, so this angel keeps going to dental where my wife works as a dental hygienist and telling her all this stuff. He's like, Angel, where you at? And he like steps out. He's like, here, sir. He's like, how do I know you? Why are you talking to my wife like this? You know everything about me. And this dude's like shaking. This recruit, Rodriguez, is shaking. And he goes, while we're here, does any other mother effer know anything else about me I need to know right now? And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, Perry, you better shut up. Perry, do not say a word. Perry, you better shut up. And recruit Perry steps out and he's like, here, sir. I'm like, oh my God, please don't say anything. He's like, sir. And this is the other part of the story that I heard from Sorry Williams at the pool function. Recruit Perry heard that drill instructor Sorry Williams played college football at Clemson, sir, which is something he told me at the pool function. After we had that ordeal, we chatted and he was pretty cool. And so I told Perry that he played college football there. He's like, Perry, who told you that? And he's like, Recruit Edwards told me that. And I was like, fuck, dude. It's like, come on, man. He's like, Edwards, where you at? And I step out. He's like, how the fuck I know you? Drill instructor Sorry Williams, sir, Recruit Edwards met you at a pool function in Charlottesville, Virginia, sir. And he's like, you fucking bitch. I remember you. And he like ran down to me. He's like, oh, you friggin' nasty bitch. And like, this is right before bedtime. He's like, get back online. He's like, y'all better go to sleep now. And the next morning when I see him, we go out, head out the door, right? And as drill instructors are walking through, they say gangway, like they put their arms out, gangway. And he's got his arms out and he's walking by me and he looks at me, he's like, little bitch. Some people shouldn't even graduate. Some people don't deserve to be here. So luckily this is third phase towards the end, close to graduation. But if he knew this like first phase, I don't know if I would have made it through this platoon. But that was a fun moment now, 20 years later. But in that moment, I will say I almost had a heart attack when I saw him as my drill instructor. He ended up being a phenomenal drill instructor. It's an example in life. You never know when someone's going to be involved with you later. So one of the best moments of boot camp was when we would do those inspections because it was just ridiculous and embarrassing. So we had a series commander inspection and it was our first one wearing jock straps. They told us, all right, you got 30 seconds, boom, go get your jock strap on, get back online. So we come back online, 3, 2, 1, we're online, and we look around and we see this kid across from us on the other side. He's got his jock strap on backwards with the straps here and the little scoop in the back. And we're all like this online. My group, we're all like, like laughing, but trying not to, because series commander, gunnery sergeant commander, and our senior drill instructor, they're walking in groups, checking the kids, the recruits for their well-being. So it was, this recruit has no physical, mental, or emotional problems reported this time, sir. Sir, this recruit has no mental, physical, and you do that as you turn in circles. I know all these Marines in here that watch this show know that. So they get to this kid, Meeks, and he's doing, sir, this recruit has no mental, and the series commander is like, stop, stop, stop. What the is this? Are you a horse in a parade trying to catch your own shit? And as he just freezes there, and we all bust out laughing. And it was the first moment where everyone broke frame. And 70 Marines, 70 recruits, were online just busting out laughing. And we all, got hazed for that one. Be the one to put the jock strap on backwards to get the rest of the freaking platoon hazed. Meeks. Everybody who went in the Marine Corps had somebody in there who either you knew or didn't know was probably in the Marine Corps band. And you could probably guess who it was later if you thought about it. If you didn't know, you'd be like, oh, it was probably that kid. He was friggin', he looked like he had musical talent. But we had this one kid in boot camp. One day we were sitting there in a school circle, and our kill hat was real goofy guy, tried really hard. That was the problem, is he tried too hard. And he's the one who's hard to break frame. He's all serious, thinks he's tough. He's a new drill instructor. And we're sitting there in a school circle, and he asked one of our recruits, like just trying to mess with him. He's like, I bet you're in the Marine Corps band. He's like, yes, sir, drill instructor, Staff Sergeant McClendon, sir, I'm in the Marine Corps band. And our drill instructor's like, oh, here we go. He's like, I bet you play the flute, don't you? He's like, no, I actually play the clarinet. And he like loses it. So he like drops his cover over his face. Our drill instructor is cracking up. We're all breaking frame and cracking up. And every time after that, he would see recruit Roberts. And he'd be like, play that friggin' flute for me, Roberts. Play that flute for me. just messing with him. Like, who thought they would have someone literally in the Marine Corps band in their platoon? But again, such a prestigious thing to have. This kid, Recruit Roberts, though, was not going in the Marine Corps to be a combat Marine, if that makes sense. He was a music player. And you could, like, once you realize that, you could tell, like, he was a musician, and that's why he was there, not to be like a combat Marine. So I'll give him grace. They're a phenomenal group, the Marine Corps band, but most of them are not warfighters. Those that were on Parris Island and not out west, where the female Marines didn't train, like for you, you didn't have any females. I want to share a story of why the females were so fun to be around at times. So at rifle range, we'd pass the females, and as they're marching, we would be calling cadence and with our drill instructors, and hearing their voices as they're marching would like get us all excited, like as the men. And our drill instructors would halt us, make us halt if they're coming, and we would have to do a right face, and they'd make us cover our ears so we couldn't hear them singing. And I just remember I'd cover my ears and I'd open like my hand up a little bit, and my drill instructor would come around, "What you doing, boy? Cover that ear." At boot camp, if you're out west, you don't have that experience. I think it's all men out there, and maybe now they blended them a little bit with current times. But passing those female Marines, that was like, besides the chow hall ladies, that's the only females you're seeing at boot camp. One thing with boot camp is where I really learned my favorite phrase as a professional is, I'm never an expert, I'm always a professional. And that started being embarrassed in boot camp, because back to my story of thinking I knew how to shoot guns, I unked the first time we qualified at rifle range. And I failed by 1 point. We get back to our barracks over at rifle range, and they made me and another guy who unked pack all our shit up and stay in the back of the barracks by ourselves, because we had one chance the next day to requalify. And if we unked then, we were going to get dropped to another platoon. They truly put a lot of pressure on you when you fail something. All my stuff had to be packed up. They even moved me out of my normal spot. And psychologically, they're putting pressure on you, because down the road, if you're in a combat zone or you're in some life or death situation, comfort is not what you want in those moments. Comfort is for good times, but being uncomfortable helps your brain really focus on the challenges to be ready for anything in life. So that night I didn't sleep. I think I sat there thinking about, I cannot fail. That's where the term expert, not being an expert, came from. Like, I'm not an expert. I didn't qualify expert the first time. And even if I do qualify expert ever, that's just in that moment. That's not an expertise for life. I got to keep working on it and be a professional day on and day out and keep climbing that mountain going up. The next day I qualify and I shot like a 211 and I passed. So I got to stay with my platoon, and they still, after that, they treat me like dog shit. And the funny story is, of course, that's why I became a saw gunner once I got to my unit. So my call to service did hit me at boot camp when we had our Eagle Globe and Anchor ceremony. Look, the Marine Corps is special in the fact that you come to boot camp, you're not a Marine. They don't tell you you're a Marine. You're a recruit. You have to earn something. It's not given to you. And that's special because you're, in your mind, you're thinking, hey, I'm not complete yet. I'm not here as a Marine. I'm here as I'm trying to become a Marine. So I remember that the EGA ceremony, when you open your hand and they put that EGA in your hand, just feeling like 13 weeks of something literally can fit in my hand. The powerful feeling you have from that moment is like, now I'm being handed the sword to be able to go to battle. And I can now actually represent my company in this uniform that has a title with it as Marine. And some of the pictures you'll see from the Marine Corps they put out from Parris Island and out there in San Diego when Marines graduate, and see how emotional they can get. If you could bottle that up and put it in something, those moments are the 0.01% of life. So after MOS school, Combat Engineer School at Courthouse Bay in Camp Lejeune, I show up to my unit in Lynchburg, Virginia. It's 4th Combat Engineer Battalion, Charlie Company, and I'm assigned to 1st Platoon. So I show up with the digis as a new Digi Marine, and also boots that you don't have to shine, just brown boots that you just got to clean. no shining, already starched and already kind of squared away uniform. A lot of these guys are wearing the old Woodlands at my unit. And so they come up to me, they're like picking my shirt, like, it's freaking nasty little digi Marine. What you doing? Very quickly, I show up to this reserve unit, and my goal was to go active duty orders. So immediately I put active duty orders in, and then within a few months, we already get activated. So like, I'm already deploying, and we get set up and do a pre-deployment, and we kick and go out west to California. Just within a few months, we're starting to go get ready to deploy. Our AO was going to be going to Iraq. So we kick off. This is mid 2004, and we're getting prepared to go to Iraq just after the first battle of Fallujah. You know, Camp Lejeune was the only place I'd been prior. So we get sent out west to Camp Pendleton, which is just an amazing base. So we live in the new barracks out there. And as we get there, this is when the IED mission was really starting to be something in Iraq. Afghanistan had some presence, but not that many Marines. But Iraq was starting to pick up in 2004 timeframe, when things were really getting heavy out there, and the IEDs were starting to get bigger. And we get out there, and as engineers, our job is to sweep for mines. And we have the old mine detector that just picks up metal. But once we get out there, we're starting to train with the new one, the ANN PSS. It's a ANN PSSS 14. It's a mine detector that takes the comm batteries out of our comm radios. So they're those heavy square batteries, and that's what powers it. And it runs off metal, but also GPR, which stands for ground penetrating radar. So we go out there to start training on this stuff and go through sapper school and do a workup, making sure we could prepare for blocking roads if needed. So it was really just all engineers, sapper stuff related, enemy munitions, really studying what enemy munitions we would see out there in theater. But what a phenomenal place to train, do a train up right there in Camp Pendleton, right outside the Christianosis gate. Because I was with that reserve unit, a couple of guys in my platoon were from my hometown, and we also had the same very super pogue recruiter. And we always would share stories about our recruiter. He was a great guy, but he just, he was great at recruiting too, but he was sneaky. I remember with my buddy, Brad Arms, 2 days before we were leaving, we're in my barracks. We're going to call our recruiter because he's like, hey, call me before you guys leave. I want to talk to you guys. And as we're on the speakerphone with him, he's like, hey guys, just want you to take care of each other. I want you to remember that where you're going, it's probably the most dangerous part of the world right now. It's a combat zone, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I need you guys to take care of each other and bring each other home. He's like, I need you to promise me that you're going to bring each other home. And obviously, like, you can't promise that, the randomness of combat. But at that young age, we're ignorant and not being in combat yet. Of course, we're like, yeah, we're going to take care of each other. Brad didn't make it home. He got killed 12 days into the Battle of Fallujah, trying to save some other Marines that were under fire. And, I didn't get to complete that goal of mine to bring him home. We took commercial aircraft with, I was a saw gunner. Commercial aircraft taking guns was pretty cool, especially like open carry on your person. Sliding that saw under my seat as I chill out on this commercial aircraft. A bunch of Marines. I remember it was that double-decker, the only double-decker aircraft I've ever flew on. I guess kind of lower level, and then you go up, and it's like a whole another floor. Massive airplane. So we fly over into Kuwait. It's basically just tent city. In Kuwait, you're just chilling. And obviously, we don't really know the whole process, but I remember showing up to Kuwait, and we'd take like buses around, I think, to get to the base we were staying at. And you'd see different NATO military members. I remember seeing the South Koreans with their like tiger uniform. I feel like they used to wear these tiger stripe kind of camo uniforms. They'd have these little like MP5 looking guns. And I'm like, dude, like, the frick is that guy got to shoot with that thing? And we're just chilling, trying to get our bodies prepared for the new environment and prepare us for what was about to come. Our first convoy on the ground was from Al-Assad all the way to right outside of Camp Fallujah at our little compound we stayed at. I literally remember specifically talking to our CO, our platoon commander, and saying, hey, sir, I just want to bring everybody home. What's he going to say? Hey, we're going to bring everybody home. And in his mind saying that is probably, of course, even if someone gets killed, we're still going to bring them home. Obviously that doesn't happen. But that first convoy, man, it's like a 6-hour convoy in the middle of the night. And they basically, remember the convoy commander brief, he's like, we're probably going to get hit with an IED on this convoy. And if we do battle drills, this is how we bail, blah, blah, blah. I was in our rear vehicle, troop carrier, 7-ton, and I had my saw. I wasn't the gunner and the turret, but I was in the troop carrier part on the last person sitting there. And I didn't sleep at all on that whole ride. And I'm usually one of those, if you're on the field, like training, on base, going from ranges to ranges or ranges to barracks, I'm one of those that has some of the best naps ever in a 7-ton or a 5-ton. I didn't close my eyes once on this first convoy. Show up to our compound early in the middle of the night. It's just so interesting to see how you show up to something and it's all already set up. Like the mission's not new, you're coming in, you're new, but they got all this stuff set up. It's time to be on another team. What stood out the most to me when I show up to Camp Abu Ghraib was showing up and seeing all the motto. So 3rd Battalion 1st Marines, their motto is balls of the core. So like a Brahma bull with massive testicles. And the motto of just seeing the logo of this battalion, you could tell they were a very prideful battalion in their work and their professionalism. And it was just an honor because I hadn't worked with any infantry units yet at this time. I was just my platoon or like going through sapper school and going through machine gunners course, working with some grunts in smaller groups. But now I'm with this prestigious, well-known infantry battalion, and it's time to be friendly, time to meet our new friends. Right off the bat, our squad leaders and a couple team leaders got picked to do the right seat ride, like learning from the current unit on the ground of engineers to do a right seat ride so we could switch out. We had about 2 weeks to get ready for the environment. And once we did get prepared as a platoon to operate, our first day on missions was a crazy day. First day on missions as our engineer platoon, the other platoon had just left. Now we're, acclimatized to the environment. Everybody's gotten yuck mouth and gotten sick a little bit. And now we're all better. And we have 6 trucks in our convoy. And we're out into part of the AO that's way up north of our AO that the battalion really hasn't put a lot of presence in lately. After we detained a couple guys that we had got some weapons and some mines off of, they were put in my truck and we had them, their eyes blocked and all that stuff, had them zip tied. And they're sitting on the high back of our Humvee that I'm in. As we're heading back to the house after this first day, truck 4 gets hit with an IED. Luckily, this IED goes off and only one of the rounds went off. The other one didn't go off and it blew in the road and started spinning like a top. This is before up armor too. So we just had those like silhouette kind of cut doors where there was that gap. We pushed out, cordoned out to the front and to the rear, blocked that road off. And at that point, we sent a small element to go check out this village that was about 150 meters to our right side. And we got everyone out from that village and started questioning them about, hey, who blew us up? Who hit us? Who attacked us? And they're saying, hey, it wasn't us. And then we ended up finding some candy cane wire, like white and red wire that led to this farm to the left side. And one of our guys on truck 6 said he saw a tractor very soon after the IED went off that drove off. Ended up finding this candy cane wire and that he had it lined up all around so it would go around his entire farm and crop field. Ended up being just hundreds of yards of wire that when EOD came out that they spooled and wrapped up and found. While we're cordoning the road, I'm on the front side security and this vehicle comes around this curve and they're trying to basically run through our cordon. And again, this is our first day. I had not been out for any operations yet. So we detained 2 guys, get hit with an IED in truck 4, and we raid this little village. And now we're out on the road waiting for EOD to show up in this cordon, and this vehicle is coming at us. And we hear the word engage because he's not slowing down. And 10 Marines on line light this dude up. Just tat, 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 tat. I'm on the left side tire of the Humvee, kneeling down as I'm engaging. And next thing you know, I hear the 240 on the turret just going off. And you just hear the vehicle's brakes hit and just this splash of pink mist on the windshield. And the car stops. And we're thinking it's a suicide vehicle-borne IED. And Luckily, ends up finding out there's no IED in the car. However, we took the guy and his body to the police station. They found out he was on one of their terror watch lists for the area. Unfortunate situation, but we got to protect ourselves. And we're on that combat zone, and we quickly learned that this is a team effort. And you might not be online with your whole platoon. You might not be on a mission with your whole platoon, but those 10 of us online, we were ready to go, and we heard the word engage. We made it happen. The operational tempo was so heavy that we had so much that there was no downtime after that incident. We come back and it was just keep on going. Most of our days were spent when it was like kind of just low presence in our area of operation. So we would do V sweep formations. So I would be on the left side usually as the road sweeper for IEDs, and we'd send out a intermediate team that was looking for like weapon caches and stuff around courtyards. Then we have an up even further from them, a kill team looking for triggermen or folks that were really focused on us and the vehicles on the road. So much area to cover that we had to be out doing those daily. I remember finding our first IED though, that didn't blow up. The first one that we found before it blew up. And that was on a sweep right by this canal. And I remember there was a mosque not far, and there was a call for prayer going on. Right at that time, we're sweeping, and I look over to my right, and I see this cinder block pile. And, again, cinder blocks, my old job as a mason laborer, I used to move cinder blocks. And I never, obviously this is a whole different country than where I grew up, but I never saw cinder blocks just kind of dumped. Like usually they'd be set and stacked, But again, my head's putting some reason to it. And I'm like, my boy Jordan is on the right side sweep team, and the vehicles are behind us. I was like, hey man, Jordan, check that out. Something looks jacked up over there. He walks up and he's like, Edwards. He was a Tennessee boy, like real country, like Boomhauer, like love this dude. He's like, Edwards, get the fuck back. Get the fuck back. There end up being 3 155s, and 155s are like 98 pounds. They shoot off like sword-like pieces like this, and they will just shred a body. Their kill radius is 50 meters per one. And there's 3 of them standing up, and the block pile is set up around them. It's kind of just to hide them. And I go tell my squad leader, and my squad leader walks up, doo-doo. Again, this is not recommended. He looks at it. For some reason, I guess he didn't see it completely put together or whatever. He ends up grabbing the wires from it and rips them out. Jordan, the country boy he is, he goes, you dumb son bitch. Don't ever do that kind of stupid shit around me again. EOD comes in. They do a controlled det. And that friggin' thing was massive. That controlled det was massive. They blew it right there in place. First IED, 50 meter kill radius, and we found 3 of them. That was a pink mist fear moment. The next incident that really was a big deal was we had a insider attack plan at one of our compounds. And whether it was planned by the Iraqi army that was out there, right off of Karma, there was a compound called the Ding. It was the Delta Iraqi National Guard compound. So Delta Company, Iraqi National Guard. Indian Company 3-1 stayed there. And we had some of our engineers that were tasked out always with the different companies. So we sent out 2 at a time to be there for engineer specialty support. I'm on QRF this day. It's first thing in the morning. Me and my boy Cantor are at the chow hall, and we're chilling, eating on our compound about 3 miles away. And next thing you know, we hear this boom off in the distance. The chow hall door was one of those old, like raggedy country doors, like you'd have in like a little porch. Doesn't really secure it. The overpressure, I guess, from 3 miles away, like slowly opened the chow hall door and shut it. We're like, that was a big explosion. And as soon as that happens, we get a call, QRF, we need you at the Ding. Go out. We're in the dump truck, one of those old 2.5 dump trucks that has like the folding windows that go up. And I'm a saw gunner, and this is the most like hasty looking setup you ever see. I fold up the windows and I take my saw out with the bipods, and I'm holding it on the hood of the 2.5 so I can be his gunner. And so we're riding off the road with Cat Team, trying to avoid mines and stuff. We show up to the Ding, and there's just car pieces everywhere. Just shred. The whole ECP entry control point of the Ding is just shredded. We had HESCO barriers up, and they just got demolished. We see parts of human bodies out in the road, like a leg. We saw a boot. The boot had a foot in it. And I remember one of the grunts brought it over to us and like it was like waving in the air like a leaf, and he like puts it on the roof of the Deuce and a Half, and my boy freaks out, the driver. He's like, man, get that shit off my truck. Man, this place got so lucky. The enemy had prepared, and we found the recruiting video of this IED attack later in a house in Fallujah. They had showed them loading up a truck and a Mercedes with 1,000 pounds of explosives, at least in the Mercedes, and about 2,000 pounds in this little truck. And they're driving it up, and they made a recruitment video of it. They even had a video of them filming us. The terrorists were showing our response. Luckily, though, no Marines got killed. One of our engineers, of those 2 that were tasked out, got hurt and got sent home because his arm got ripped up. But no one got killed. Both these vehicles hit the ECP, and because the first one created so much secondary fragmentation and just visibility challenges, the second one was supposed to go. The first one was going to blow up the ECP. The second one was going to come in and hit the building where all the Marines were, and it would have killed probably all of them. But both of them hit the ECP, and the Marine in the ECP and the checkpoint part was all protected by this glass and HESCOs. I believe he got knocked out, but he didn't get killed. But man, being part of that though, and then seeing later how the terrorists use those attacks to market themselves and create these recruitment videos. I still have a copy of it today, man. It's just eerie to watch, because they have to get lucky once. We, as defenders and protectors, we got to stay lucky and be ready all the time. About a month into deployment, I get tasked out to go live down at Abu Ghraib prison with Lima Company 3-1. So me and my boy Jordan, engineer buddies, the guy I swept on the road with, we got sent out together to go live at the prison with the grunts. And the cool thing there was, you show up at this prison, and it's probably the size of about 8 football fields, maybe 10. So we're living there, and when you show up, the Marines are not the commanders of the base. It's an Army base. So when the Marines show up, we end up living in the back of the base, like the stepchildren that we are to the other services. But the best part is that we are the only ones that did patrols outside the base. Our job was to be the guard dogs of the base. At night, we're going to be patrolling the perimeters and also the presence during the day. So we had a back gate that we could access and leave on. We also lived in old jail cells that were boarded up with plywood. So we had our own separate rooms, but we lived in the jail cells because we would get mortared by the enemy. And the tents is where the prisoners were living. So we were trying to teach them a lesson, like, don't mortar us, because you're likely going to hurt your own people that are staying in the tents. This was like, after that first month of craziness, it was like a vacation. You got chow hall that stays open for like 4 meals, including mid-rats. So you come up for like a night patrol, and you can go get an omelet and go have like the best chow, phenomenal chow hall. And they even had like salsa night. You go down there and play video games. And we really didn't have that at our other compound where the battalion was. If someone had a TV, like maybe you could play like Xbox or something, but the Marines, not me, I was a witness and laughed a lot at this. But a lot of the Marines would go down because all the Army chicks would go to salsa night. So all the Marines were like hanging out with all the Army chicks, and the Army guys hated that, of course. It was like Friday night going to the bowling alley in a small town. Everybody shows up. Half the dudes are standing against the wall with their leg up, just chilling. And then half dudes are out there dancing, just don't care. And that's where you find the Marines out there not caring and dancing. I do remember specifically seeing a couple Army commanders, mostly lieutenants, that you would pass, and they would say, "Hey, Marine, why do you salute me?" And I'm like, "Sir, I'm helping save your life. Okay, we're in a combat zone. Marines don't salute in combat." And they would just get so mad, these Army commanders, Army lieutenants. Our job there was just to build a presence in that town of Nasawa Salam and Kandari. And really, we were able to make the villagers and the locals feel safe. And that really was our true job, right? We were preparing for the first elections in January 2005. So our job was to go out there and create a safe environment. One of the most enjoyable things we would do on just day-to-day patrols we'd pack our gear up, our day packs with with hygiene products, toothpaste, toothbrush, mouthwash. We would see locals with jacked up grills and teeth. We'd be like, hey, mister, come here. We got something for you. And we would teach them how to brush their teeth and use mouthwash. And it was surprising to see how much they didn't use that stuff. And that stuff, they'd spit it out so fast. And they would just like, oh, this is terrible. But the important part is we're giving our values as Americans that we take advantage of. And at the smallest level, just helping people out. We were out on a night patrol once, and we were doing a raid on this supposed IED factory that was very close to the prison. And we had gone out and set up this whole plan, and we were going to hit this target. And I was attachment, so I'm also a saw gunner, but they stuck me on rear truck to be the gunner for rear security. I was like, great, thank you, appreciate it. They're hitting this raid, and at the same exact time, route mobile is the one that goes all the way to Baghdad, like kind of from Fallujah area to Baghdad. And there's a massive convoy going by, probably 80 to 100 vehicles. And they're probably 700 to 800 meters from us. This is the first time that I took friendly fire in a moment. And it was all blacked out, raid we were on. So there was, no light coming from us at all from the Humvees. But I guess they saw movement. And they started from the vehicles on that convoy. They started lighting us up with Mark 19 and 50 cal fire from about 800 meters away. Obviously, effective range for a 50 cal, still pretty far away. But the driver of the truck, he just hit the gas and flew. And I hit the back gate and flew out of the Humvee. I remember like just laying there like, oh my gosh. I don't think I can move. I stand up and that fire's still coming in. I get back in the truck and like, I didn't tell anybody about this, right? I hurt my shoulder. My shoulder got raised from the tendon. And I didn't want to share with the doc or with anybody because I didn't want to get, sent home or like have to go deal with an injury. But man, that was a crazy moment. You're a Marine, you're a specialist in this specific craft as a engineer in breaching and demolition. And you're with these guys that are brand new to you. And you're out there and all that blind trust, man, it really prepared me for what was coming, getting into the Battle of Fallujah in a few weeks. That was an open lesson for me where sometimes you got to suck things up with this big straw and not say a word if you want to stay with your team. So we had a little bit of time. I was at the prison and we all left, Lima Company left, and we went to go live up there right outside of Camp Abu Ghraib and Camp Fallujah, in these old huts outside the base with our battalion. And once we got there, it was all battle drill preparation for the second Battle of Fallujah. At the lower level, in the squad level, something big is coming, but you don't know the details yet. We all kind of know what's going on, but sometimes the details aren't there. So I was never really a big part of that underground network. Like people are saying this is happening or this is happening. I was always one of those guys like, hey man, they'll let us know when we need to know. But we get back and we're preparing for being the main assault effort in the second Battle of Fallujah, which is crazy. One of our tasks was waiting for the rest of the units to get built together for this massive battle, was to kind of poke the enemy a little bit. So they called it feints. So we would do almost a attempted assault, and they didn't know it was fake, of course. The enemy didn't. So what we do is we would load up in our tracked vehicles. And like they're like the tank tracks, but they're troop carriers. And we would have the tops open so that they had like these tops on the top of the track that you could open. Our goal was for our team, the squad I was with, to get close enough to try to shoot some small rockets, which sounds like a horrible idea from a track because all the backblast you would get. But that was the intent. And I remember we had the top open and we're all, got our little turtle heads out. And we're in this wedge formation with other tracks. And next thing you know, we're on the south side of the city where they were most fortified because it was all open area. And they were protected on the north side where there was all these three rows of train tracks that went through. So they had this terrain feature protecting them on the north side. So the south side was the vulnerable part, but they had built it all up with berms and a lot of protection. So we're just challenging them and seeing what they have. And obviously gathering intelligence from aircraft. And we got some of our guys are dismounted up further, closer to the city on the right side. But we're in these tracks, and I just remember seeing these mortars dropping around us, like, doosh. It was like a slow-mo from like Saving Private Ryan, just seeing mortars dropping, doosh, 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 doosh. And it was like a cloudy day, like I remember right now. Cloudy day, kind of cool, but this eerie feel of just watching from this track. It was like I was watching a movie that I've seen in the past. And one of those old school movies where just it's open field and just mortars dropping. So we ended up shutting the hatches on the AAVs. Our task was complete. We were just seeing how fortified they were. And were they ready? Oh yeah, they were ready for us on that south side. So that really helped us because a few weeks later, right after the re-election for President Bush, we were able to go prepare and sit out and wait for this battle to start. So he got reelected November 4th. We were out staging November 6th in our fighting positions surrounding the city, waiting for the air attack to soften the city up for us to come in and breach the night of November 7th. Once we got that call, once November 7th came and it got dark, we all knew that was the insert time. We all staged our vehicles on the north side, and the goal was the Marine Corps had figured out they were going to shoot MICLICs. MICLIC, all it is a massive line charge that shoots C4 explosives about 100 meters from a tracked vehicle trailer and shoots it, and then it blows. You can hit the button and you can blow it up. So it creates a path for you. So we shot multiple MICLICs to breach the train tracks, and then we had the bulldozers, the D9 bulldozers from guys from our platoon and from 2nd CEB to come in and make a path to get all the vehicles through to assault the city. It worked for most. So our squad, we're with Lima Company 3-1, our engineer squad, because all our engineer squads got split up to operate as different squads for the 3 different infantry line companies. So India Company, Kilo Company, and Lima Company each got one of our engineer squads. And then our 4th squad of engineers were the heavy equipment operators for the D9 bulldozers, and also some of the tracked vehicles. When we go to insert with Lima Company, our squad of engineers, our driver bottoms out our Humvee on this little dirt and blows our transmission in the insert. Everyone keeps going. We get left behind. So we, of course, battle drills. When the vehicle goes down, bail, 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 right? We jump out, and there's actually an ACE bulldozer. It's like a dirt pusher, and it's got this opening. So me and a few of our guys in our squad jump in this thing that we can hang out in for some protection because we're in the open. The train station became our battalion headquarters, also our aid and litter station. You know how the Marine Corps they ship me something, right? If you lose something, you better ship me something. So that somehow they just shove me shit out this Humvee, and it just appeared, and we cross-loaded all our shit from our other Humvee, jumped in that truck, and we finally got into the city with Lima Company. We showed up to them. They had already dealt with some detainees from the terrorists that they had detained. They had them tied up, guys screaming, yelling. We show up to the first house that they had taken to go firm at nighttime to sleep and to rotate fire watch. They give our whole squad of 13 engineers this 10 by 10 room, small little room, that you would give like a kid. And they're like, hey, there's your room. You can sleep. So we end up trying to find space on the floor, and everyone's like, you cuddle up pretty much with somebody else. Like, you can't lay without touching somebody else, 10 by 10 room with 13 guys and all your kit and gear. I finally lay down, and 10 minutes has gone by probably since we got in there. And then we hear this knock on the door. They're like, yo, y'all got fire watch. And I was like, are you serious, dude? Like, we just had this friggin' vehicle down, cross-loaded all our shit. They had been here, but of course we show up late to the party. So I get picked for fire watch first. Me and Jordan are told to go sit out on the street because I got my saw, and we're 50 on, 50 off fire watch for hours, just watching the dark. I had no engagements that night, but just the eeriness of we're in their zone now. We're in their area now. Like, this is where they've had safe haven for like months and months and months, and they've fortified this whole place. It's like, hey, we're here now. Time to play. The first full day of the battle, like the actual daytime, we wake up, we start clearing house by house, just one by one. Our job was to clear every single house in the city with 4 Marine battalions and 1 Army battalion online. That was our whole job, just squeegee them out. That first day was like the most amazing day as a Marine. Everything we did was what Marines trained to do. As demo guys, we would throw demolitions in houses to either breach doors, breach gates, to, kind of soft clear some areas first before the grunts would go in. But we really spent a lot of time shooting small rockets too, which are shoulder fire rockets that only a few specialty Marines get to have. The assaultmen and a few engineers get to use those. I didn't deal with any engagement inside of a house, but I was in a courtyard and some guy threw a grenade over, and we had him cornered, and he was not going to give up. He threw this grenade over, and a few of us were in this courtyard or this alleyway, and I don't know how I didn't get hit with this grenade, but I see this opening in this door, and as he threw it, I go back to that door because I just passed it, and I jump in that door frame, and boom, and then I'm like checking myself, thinking I got hit, and I don't feel anything, and I'm like, what in the heck? And then that guy finally surrenders because they jump over that wall and get to him. But that first day was just phenomenal. It was like you operate. I saw no one get killed, no Marines. I saw just operational savviness and smoothness, and it was truly one of the best days of my life. One of the most memorable parts of the first day was we had this Marine named Sugatan, and he was a 0351, and he was a small gunner. Small is shoulder launched multi-purpose assault weapon. It's like an 83 millimeter rocket, and they have different types of warheads on them. And I think he was using either the any round or the dual purpose round. But anyway, he sees movement. One of us sees movement in this upper part of this house, and we're all on this courtyard kind of standing. And the important thing is that anytime you shoot a rocket, there's standoff, and you have backblast area that you have to clear because you'll get bit by the backblast of the wind. Sugatan, literally, this is like not where you should be shooting this. He's on this platform, and we're all kind of pushed to the side to stay at a backblast. And as soon as someone's like said they saw someone, he literally pops it up. He's like, clear out of the way, clear out of the way. And his A gunner had cleared the back area, and he just lights this dude up. And this whole thing just, it was literally movie-ish. This whole entire little upper window just demolished, and wherever that dude was. And we were all just like, this is amazing. Like it's my first time seeing a small hit something that wasn't a tank on the range back home. It was a real target. That was how the first day was. It was, everything went smooth. No one that I was with, we had guys get hurt and killed, but where I was in my element, no one got hurt, no one got killed. And we were just operating like that, how Sugatan was, just destroying everything we wanted to. Because remember, we got these civilians out of the city. For months and months, the military dropped leaflets telling the civilians to get out. And over 90% of them did. So we knew our rules of engagement brief from before was, hey, military age males, these are going to be our enemy combatants in that city. It was nasty. Everyone that was there to fight. We did get some civilians out, but the ones that stayed were there to fight to the death. We would just sleep anywhere. So we could sleep outside, under the vehicle sometimes, take over a house. But one of the most memorable nights for me was 3 days into the battle, right before it got dark, a squad leader got hit. He didn't get killed, but he got hit and got sent home and taken out. And when you lose your squad leader and you're an attachment like that as an engineer squad, that really impacts a lot. Because that is your command, that is your highest commander of your specific engineer unit that's with you. That would be for like the grunts losing your platoon guide or platoon sergeant. When he got hit, we had just found, and this is right off the contractor bridge, the Blackwater Bridge. It's called Route Elizabeth. It was a few hundred meters down from the bridge itself, which they call the Brooklyn Bridge, where they hung those bodies after they drugged them through the road, and they killed him earlier in that year. Ended up being, we found Al-Zarqari's one of his main compounds in Fallujah. And Al-Zarqari was, basically you could say he was kind of the leader of what's become ISIS these days. He was a high-level Al-Qaeda guy from Jordan, and he came and operated and ran a lot of that terrorist network around Fallujah and the foreign fighters. He's the one that got a lot of the Chechens to come in, a lot of Sudanese, a lot of Yemen fighters, and they even had some from Europe. I remember seeing a mortar letter from a German Muslim that it came there to fight. But that was the place. They came there to fight. Finding this compound, though, Al-Zarqari's compound, one of our team leaders discovered it, and we believe, the room where they beheaded Nick Berg. And we also found a room next to that had all these computers everywhere. And on the balcony they had up top, they had a satellite dish. So obviously they were doing some high speed stuff, probably trying to steal connections from us, from our local bases. They had a good setup in there. And in the basement, we found basically this dungeon of dead bodies everywhere. You would see in the walls like people's fingernail marks that would be left in the walls that were probably getting dragged downstairs. It was just an eerie place, man. We found a Marine that had gone UA from another camp. We found his camis and his uniform. It was just funky. It was weird. And I remember the exploitation team comes in, the human exploitation team comes in and tells everybody, get out. Because we had found that Marine's camis that had gone UA. So it was like, all right, this is high level evidence they need. They wanted all of us out of there. And we're like, dude, we're shooting mortars on the roof. Like, we can't leave right now. On another rooftop right across from this house, there's a gunfight happening. One of the Marines, Corporal Bowling, who was one of the best grunts that I ever got to meet. We got tight when I lived at the prison. He got shot in the neck. The story of getting him off that roof, they basically had to wrap him into bed sheets and blinds to lower his body down, because it was just they I guess so much damage into the house they couldn't get him down. They had to do it from the outside. So they get him down and he's killed, and he was just about to get out of the Marine Corps. Actually, like, he had like 3 days left. He was about to get out and going to get sent home early. They put him in the body bag in the truck, and at the same time an RPG comes in and it hits the wall and blows up. And my squad leader had pushed a couple of our guys in our squad away, and they went under this vehicle, and my squad leader took all the impact of that to his leg, and it ripped his leg up. All at the same time when we're in this compound and HET teams in there. It's just craziness. At that moment, they treat him as a casualty, put him in this truck. My driver, our engineer driver for our Humvee, he gets asked to take Corporal Bowling's body and Sergeant Harris back to the Aid and Litter Station, a battalion, with a couple other injured Marines. And at that exact point, that vehicle leaves. They tell us to jump in this other vehicle because it's dark now, and that vehicle is down. And just a mass chaos. Then at the same time, I know this sounds crazy, there's an EOD element that was at the building next to Al-Zarqari's compound that had a massive weapons cache they found, and they were going to blow it in place. But EOD told my team leader, hey, we're leaving. We already set all the charges up. We can't get you all out of here yet. We're leaving though, because it's getting dark. You guys got to blow that. We're having to deal with this. Our squad leader's down. They're about to roll. Our truck's leaving. The next truck they're told us to getting in is down. We're trying to figure all this out and clear the area. And I remember just standing out, and there's this massive building across the right side of the street, probably 8 stories high, and now it has windows everywhere. And they're like, hey, we need you to cover that area right now. Cover that area while we clear all this stuff out, try to figure out how to get this truck out of here that's down. And my team leader now, because remember, our squad leader just got hit, so our squad's freaking out. My team leader is in charge of blowing this controlled det that EOD set up once we can clear the area. But we got to get this truck out of here first. I'm just covering security with my saw, and I'm looking at this massive 8-story building like, there's so many places someone can hide right now. Like, this is terrible. I take no engagement from that. However, I finally get told to jump in this truck. They want me to drive the down vehicle, and anyone who's driven a Humvee that's not working, power steering just doesn't work really anyway. So I'm trying to do a 90-degree turn in this vehicle, and they're pulling me with the tow bar had broke. So they'd use the tie down straps, and they're trying to pull me, and I'm turning this vehicle, and we turn a little bit, not enough. And I end up clipping another vehicle, and all the jersey racks with all our kit and all our bags end up falling off. And we're still stuck in this area trying to still do the control det for that EOD charge that they had left. And our team leader, as we all get down the street to our farmhouse for the night, probably about 200 meters down, he comes out and catches up with us. He's like, all right, I pulled the charge. It's going to blow up. We show up to our farmhouse. We're exhausted. And at this time, we're not thinking about how exhausted we are. We just are. All that stuff we just dealt with. This is where the humor of Marines is absolutely insane. So anytime we engaged the terrorists and we killed them, we would have to mark it with a 10-digit grid so the aid and litter teams later could come pick their bodies up. So we could, of course, clean up the city and give it back to the actual civilians that were the populace of that city. Our firm house, there was 2 terrorists that had been killed. I don't know who killed them. Some of the grunts had moved their bodies and put them in front of the stairwell to go upstairs. So you had to step over 2 dead bodies just to go upstairs to where we were going to go firm and sleep for the night. Like, just the humor of stupid Marines. I love you all, but why? You know, when we lost someone, there was no, hey, let's go ahead, break contact. Let's go back to our main base. Let's reassess. Let's mourn. It was, hey, okay, put them in a body bag, or if they're hurt, put them in a truck, take them back to Aiden Litter Station. We got to keep fighting. Go to the next house. Go to the next house. Go to the next house. But at this point, it was getting dark, so we didn't have advantage at night because, again, it wasn't our city. Even though we had the technology, the night vision, hard to do that in an urban environment. Just so many nuances. So at nighttime, we would go firm. We would take over a house and set up security, and that would be our firm base for the night. And that's when we're rotating fire watch. And this is day 3 of the battle. And one awesome story of PsyOps. I want to give a shout out to PsyOps out there, because PsyOps, you don't just mess with the enemy, you also mess with the friendlies. Had PsyOps out there playing AC/DC. We had PsyOps out there at nighttime playing cat noises. Like, I'm talking about if you ever heard a bobcat in the woods at night, like screech, there was some scary noises. So I remember being on fire watch using the PEX, the passive infrared, and looking through. And next thing I know, as I'm doing that, I hear these like cat noises. And I'm like, what is that? And it's PsyOps driving around playing cat noises at night. I can only imagine being the enemy, because we had cut the power off to the city so that no one could have power in any of the buildings. Imagine them, a lot of them were drugged up, shooting up vials of adrenaline and using cocaine to fight, to give them these, extra human powers. But I can only imagine how they felt holed up hearing those cat noises. We were seriously messing with them at night, and that was our advantage. So PsyOps, shout out to y'all. Y'all do a phenomenal job, and you have a reason why you exist, because it works. It worked for us too. It freaked us out. That next morning, we had to cross the main access point where Route Henry and Route Fran meet, and they call it the Fallujah 400. So it's about 400 meters to get across this massive open area. Just the setup for that, it was such a strategic setup, because there's so many curbs and things you got to jump over and run through. But that's where the snipers really had a lot of access to us and a lot of opportunity to hit us, the enemy snipers. Preparing for that, getting that whole element across the Fallujah 400, you would have thought it'd be easy, but the setup for that just took forever. Preparing to push through this massive open area, a very, very exposed open area where the enemy snipers could easily hit you. And they had killed a bunch of Marines and hurt a bunch of guys in this spot. It was just one of those things where it's like, all right, danger crossing, simple danger crossing that you do, but it's a 400-meter danger crossing in the most deadly city in the entire world at the time. So I just remember everyone kind of having to amp everybody up for it. Like it's almost like a sporting game, like a football game. Like, hey man, you ready to go? You ready to go? Okay, it's play time. It's go time, and just pumping everybody up. I'm like, all right, go, smack their butt and then friggin' go. I never ran that fast in my life that I did with all that kit on, my 190-pound self running with all that kit. I remember we get across and we're like thinking, oh, sweet, man, we're good. And then it was a whole new street of just hundreds and hundreds of houses we got to clear throughout that day. Just clearing, nonstop, clearing. It took the whole company probably about a good 30 minutes to an hour to get across. While we were doing all this, you got to have vehicles with you, because that's where you can actually store your extra gear. That's where you can have your ammo, all that good stuff. And also you need to have that as well for all your comms equipment too. So you really think about dismounted was what we did the whole time, but we also had vehicles staged with us, and tracked vehicles as well. Those armored vehicles I was telling you about. The next couple of days is just clearing, not a lot of enemy contact, a little bit stuff here and there. But the next big moment was when I saw the first Marine get killed in front of me. It's just something that you can never prepare yourself for. We had just cleared this house, and Lance Corporal Benjamin Bryan was our last guy to come out. As he was coming out of the house, it was me, another Marine, and then Lance Corporal Benjamin Bryan, he comes out of the doorway and you hear just a couple rounds that get sprayed from someone else. And some terrorists had jumped in the back of the alleyway behind the house. And there was, I guess, an opening from the back door to the front door. And he just sprayed a couple rounds. And both of them hit Brian, one on the right side, one on the left side, right outside his plate. And they both collapsed his lungs, both lungs. We don't know, of course, at the time where he's hit, but we know he's hit because he drops. And at that point, of course, contact, right? Like set up security. So I remember just seeing him drop and I'm grabbing him over top of him and I'm trying to look where he's hit and he's just looking at me like this, just trying to breathe. And just seeing that, like, that's a face I'll never be able to not see, of someone who's trying to breathe. And I'm not a doc, I'm not a corpsman. We kind of roll him out and we set up security. Some guys push out and we rip all his kit off and his gear. And that's when Doc comes in and realizes he's shot right outside his plates on both sides. So we put him in a tracked vehicle and we were trying to get him out to aid and litter stations as fast as we could so he can get the proper care. So he left still alive, not breathing, unfortunately. And he died on transit to get to aid and litter station. And I remember when that call came in that Brian didn't make it. Because we, again, this is what's so challenging with what we dealt with in that battle is in a normal operation, if that happened, we would get out of there, break contact, that mission would be over. We were stuck in the mission. We could not leave. The only way you were leaving was either you got hurt or you got killed. So when that happened, we put him on a track and we had to literally keep clearing houses. And in our minds, that's where you pack this stuff away. Like, you just put it away. Like, whatever just happened, I can't deal with that right now. I'm going to have to deal with that later. But at that age as well, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds, we are the good age for warfighting because our minds are pushing away those cognitive things. We're thinking about just victory and being strong and winning. So we keep fighting. And then the message comes in probably, 10 to 15 minutes later, we get told that Brian didn't make it. And we all just almost collapsed, like the way we felt. So this is where little lulls, little halts in the battle were so important. We all halted. And I remember the house we just cleared was where we stayed at. And I remember sitting down in this small room in the back, kind of like just dark, just kind of, felt kind of damp room. I remember just leaning my back against the wall and just sliding down. And I'm in there with another Marine that ends up dying 4 days later. Lance Corporal Mike Hanks. He's in there with me. And one of the corporals is in there from the grunts. And literally for 10 minutes, we're sitting there. We had about 10 minutes to just take this in for losing Lance Corporal Brian. Take a big straw, suck it the frig up, and keep moving. We sat in there 10 minutes, didn't say a word to each other. And this is where I remember the leadership of a guy like Lance Corporal Mike Hanks. He lit us up. He's just said, let's fucking go. And like those little moments, I really connected with Hanks a lot because he was just a funny guy and always talking shit. But those little moments, because he didn't make it. And now my job is to also tell his story. He helped us, though, realize, okay, we got to keep going. We're still in this fire. And I'll never forget that. He literally stood up and said, let's fucking go. And that's when me and Corporal Soldier ended up walking out. We all linked up as a team and everybody kept going and clearing. Those moments of having to fight through that challenge, that stuff's it's hard to deal with and accept because now being older, I can't imagine 20 years, like spend 20 years. I can't imagine now going through that. This is where we need to also give grace to those amazing senior leaders that we all served under, like Colonel Buell, Sergeant Major Sachs, Gunny Hackett, all these phenomenal senior NCOs and commanders that were around for a long time. They were where I am now. They were older generation then. Those leaders we had back then were just phenomenal for us. We fast forward to 4 days later. We're at the point where we're close to the south side of the city, close to where we did that fake feint. We're almost throughout the whole city and cleared. But we are coming upon this compound that the night before had killed a lot of terrorists at night. Our snipers were very active at nighttime, and we had found a body that had been killed. There was 2 bodies, and one of them had grenades. The enemy would come out and they would take grenades and lay them under the bodies, pull the pen out and lay the grenades under the body. So when the aid and litter teams for the coalition would come out and pick the bodies up, those grenades would go off. We had this body and we saw these grenades under it. And me and my boy Fatty, we were like, we need to blow this thing up in place because it's going to impact the aid and litter team. So we put a stick of C4 on the chest of this dead body. And literally we blew this thing up and came back, and everything from here down was just gone. And the person's head had done like a 180, was facing backwards. It was the craziest thing. Never blew a body up before, like that. But that was the kind of stuff we had to do. And right when that happened, we were walking in this tiny little alleyway, around this corner, and we take a right, and right there is where the reenactment on Shootout Fallujah. That's where Mike Hanks got killed. That's where Sergeant Connor got shot in the same compound as Hanks. And on the other side, Private Stokes got stuck inside this house with 6 to 8 Chechens by himself, in and out of consciousness, fighting for him. But this whole reenactment of this is all in the History Channel Shootout Fallujah, that I highly recommend people watching to understand how this place was. Every turn, every twist brought a whole different moment. You never knew what would bring. So we come around this corner, and after blowing up that body that had those grenades under it, and Sergeant Connor gets in this alleyway, and I guess he's trying to draw attention because I think he saw someone running there. Sergeant Connor's doing like the running rabbit thing where he's in there himself, and he has Hanks as Overwatch. This guy in this window sees Sergeant Connor, and he turns to shoot at him, and Sergeant Connor does this roll, and he shoots and gets shot in the arm. And at the same time, when that happens, I guess Hanks is on the outside of this courtyard, right at the edge where the opening was. And the same guy gets turned and shot Hanks right in the face and killed him like that. And at that point, I was in the front of the compound, perpendicular. I remember hearing that burst of fire going off. And then next thing I know, I see these other Marines dragging Hanks' body out. Hanks was like the platoon funny man. He was a natural leader. He was one that brought people together. He made you feel stronger just by his presence. But as they bring him out, you can just see his body's just dragging on the ground. His head's just doing this. We had an author with us named Patrick O'Donnell. And I remember Patrick O'Donnell, he's the one that wrote the book We Were One, about the Marines in Fallujah, about us. And he's holding this helmet, Hanks' helmet, with just this blood in there. It's the slow-mo moments of that. And this is why I hate flies so much. The heat and the flies, whenever something was dead, the flies would swarm their bodies so fast. And I remember seeing this almost like this basketball of flies surrounding Hanks' head as we're trying to get him out and put him in the body bag. And I freaking hate, every time there's a fly in my house, I will hunt it down until it's dead. I will kill it for those kind of moments. I cannot stand flies because they're just nasty. The first full day of the battle, Mike Hanks lost 2 of his Marines in his fire team. He was a fire leader. They went into this room and boom, pretty much instantly got hit. I wasn't there at the time. I was, a couple streets away, but that was something where in that moment, the actions of Mike is what led to him getting a Silver Star from his actions during that battle for that incident and some others too. He also saved a couple Iraqis soldiers as well in a couple of different times. Mike was a action guy. When action was happening, he was in it. When he got hit, the squad leader, Sergeant Connor, had also got shot in the arm. And I remember him in the book. You can see the book We Were One. He was smoking a cigarette, and it shows a picture of him in the book. I have never seen anyone smoke a cigarette so fast and not taking it out of their mouth. He just sucked that thing down. And as he's shot in the arm, he's telling the corpsman, he's like, "Doc, take my fucking gun to my arm. I'm not fucking leaving. Take my fucking gun to my arm. I'm not leaving." He was like screaming that. He had lost so many squad members, and he would write them on his hat, on his Kevlar, on the side of the cloth. Man, that dude he was a small guy, short, but that dude is a savage. I saw him take out 4 dudes, and once I was in a stack with him, he took out 4 dudes before I can even get one shot off in one of the stacks I was in. He was an absolute savage, sergeant that later retired as a gunnery sergeant out of the Marine Corps after 20 plus years. But at that same time of that house, in the reenactment, it shows it as two different incidents. But Private Stokes on the other side of the house, they were trying to go, his fire team went in the front after Hanks and Sergeant Connor after Hanks got killed and Sergeant Connor got hurt. Stokes and his fire team goes in the front, and the last door that they're going to check, right when they're about to check it, a grenade rolls out and it separates their fire team. So 3 of them get out. Stokes gets stuck inside and he gets hit with fragments of this grenade. He's got his rifle, and I think, if I remember right, like most of his fingers got jacked up. I remember when we got him out, his fingers were like all bloody and kind of like hanging off a little bit. His rifle took most of the damage, and he's laying prone in this little hallway adjacent from these terrorists that were stuck in this closet. And then they come out and they're engaging with him, throwing grenades, shooting at him. The back of the house, there is a back door that's padlocked shut. And one of our Marines, we had this one Marine that was just a beast. He literally plowed through the back door, ran through it, just ran right through it. Lance Corporal Lowe popped in and covered suppressor fire as I think they pulled out Stokes and got him out of there. This is all in the reenactment though, crazy. At this time, I'm in this alleyway right here covering Overwatch right here for what's going on inside the house with Stokes. I took machine gun fire from about 30 feet away from this window, and I couldn't see inside. I just remember seeing this muzzle flash come at me, and I'm kneeling, and I roll to my left, and I just see the bullets flying in as I roll to my left, and I don't know how I didn't get hit. I mean, just complete randomness, not luck. I've learned to say it's more randomness of combat, not luck. And so I roll to my left, I pull back. They had just got Stokes out, and I'm now covering down the alleyway this way as they're treating Stokes, and you can see his hands are all bloodied up, kind of jacked up. Then as I'm covering, this is a shot that I wish I could take back, or a moment I wish I could take back. One of the terrorists, there's probably a 5 to 6 meter, so not even 20 feet distance between this, it's probably like 10 feet, honestly, distance between this courtyard and this courtyard. And this terrorist runs out from the house to the other courtyard. And I just didn't get to shoot him in time. I didn't have time to do it. And so at that point, I was like, hey, friggin' dude just ran in here. So they brought up this tank. We brought up a main Abrams tank, and we pulled it behind us. And y'all know the grunt phone on the back. There's a grunt phone on the back of the tanks. Sergeant Slaughter told the tank commander to shoot into that house where this guy ran to. So they literally just demolished that house with main tank rounds. And you talk about being close to tanks when they go off. Those things actually move like 4 to 5 feet when they shoot a main round. They like move back. It's crazy to see that and be right there. One of the most fun things I got to do as a Marine combat engineer there is I didn't get stuck with one team. So because throughout the battle, demolition became the force multiplier. And the cool thing about that was we got recognized as being needed more and more as the battle went on, because we were down. Our platoon started with 60 some guys, and the one I was with came out with 19, that were walking. So they were pretty much combat ineffective at the end. But I got tasked out with another platoon that was led by Lieutenant Iskell, Zach Iskell, who's a well-known guy now. And he was with half Iraqis and half Marines, were his platoon, what made up his platoon. And so I got tasked out for a couple days with them. And I remember I show up, and again, I'm a demo guy. Most grunts, unless you're a saltman, aren't very comfortable with demo. So we end up using Bangalore torpedoes, like the ones they use on beaches in Normandy. That was our specialty weapon. And I never saw a real Bangalore in the Marine Corps until I got into the Battle of Fallujah, and I was a demo guy. It's crazy. So we'd have crates of Bangalore torpedoes, and they were great to throw into a window and blow something up. So I show up with Lieutenant Iskell and his team of Iraqi soldiers and Marines, and they're like, hey, we got all these Bangalores. I need you to prep so we can blow them up. This is where I say the term pogish. It's really cool to have a specialty where the grunts are looking at you like, I can't do that, but you can. So I open up all these crates in the morning, first thing, and I'm prepping them with this thing we call alternate tie number 2. It's so you have a deck cord, and then you could prime in some time fuse to it. And so I'm just prepping them. And each crate comes with 10. And I think I prepped like 20 of them total, because this was like later in the battle towards the end, when we were just always blowing something up first before we go into a house, because we just had lost so many guys. After I prepped these Bangalores, me and one of the corporals I was with, Corporal Cannon, we were tasked by Lieutenant Iskell. He's like, all right, we're going to do something that's different. There's these 2 houses here that I don't like, something's going on. So we're going to hit them at the same time. So I am predicting that we might have done the first ever tandem Bangalore rush in history on a house. Not on the beach in Normandy, but on a house. So they sent 2 grunts with me, 2 grunts with Corporal Cannon, and they boosted us up on the wall of the house, like the courtyard wall. We had the team comms radios, the little ones we wear. I can't remember what they were called. And so we were counting down to pop smoke for our charges. And I think we had put 15-second time fuses on them. And so we go to pop, and like, all right, 3, 2, 1, go. And he yells smoke, and I'm like trying to get mine. And next thing you know, when he yells smoke, this is where I make fun of grunts. Like, guys, you got to help us out. The grunts that were holding me up dropped me because he yelled smoke, and they were scared because they started running. But I didn't say smoke yet. I needed them to hold me. So they dropped me. So I like chicken winged on this friggin' courtyard as I'm held up this like 8-foot wall and trying to pop smoke as the grunts rolled out and left me alone. And I'm like just holding up on this wall, chicken winging it as I pop smoke and I throw it into the house. And I remember seeing the Bangalore spark. And I'm like, oh shit, I got to go. I drop off the wall and I start boogieing. And as I run, his goes off. And it's like this crazy little run I had. I make it behind this wall right before mine goes off. Just an amazing experience. One of those stories that I will never get to experience again from a tandem Bangalore rush in combat. So Bangalore is our 50, I think they're 52 inches of Comp B explosives, but they hit hard. So when mine went off, the one that I hit, so when I run back and go and I jump behind this piece of cover, I look around and I see that the roof of mine that it hit, the roof jumps up in the air and then comes down. So, I mean, it dropped the whole roof. And I was like, yep, you're welcome. Y'all see that? Those Pogues did it again, baby. Pogues up. After the battle was kind of pretty much the initial part was done, the whole platoon linked up. So we got picked up. The guys that were tasked out from each line company got together. And our commander was going to take us back because we had some combat replacements, some guys that came in that we had to go back to our main compound and pick up and get them spun up. On the way, our first stop from the city of the battle, obviously we smelled terrible. Of course, we didn't shower. Probably smelled like death, blood, just stuff all over you, whatever, grime. Our first stop, though, was the chow hall at Camp Fallujah. This happened to be Thanksgiving. Somehow the day, and it was Thanksgiving meal at the chow hall at Camp Fallujah. So we show up, and this is like a big deal, right? Thanksgiving meal in combat. We try to get in the chow hall, and they turn us away because they said we looked too nasty with our camis. So we come back to the trucks, and he's like, "What's going on? What happened?" And we tell him, "Hey, they won't let us in." He goes, "Are you friggin' serious?" Oh man! So he like storms up there. He basically tells them, "Look, it's our first stop from the city. We have not eaten real food in a long time. You're either letting us in or we're going to kill all you guys and we're coming in." we ended up coming in, and I remember standing in line. This is the first time I saw Sergeant Major Kent, the soon-to-be Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. He was serving chow because he was the one MEF commander, one MEF Sergeant Major. Him, General Sadler, General Natonsky, Sergeant Major Bell, all the bigwigs were serving chow for the Marines because Thanksgiving meal. I just remember getting this meal, and I hadn't eaten during the battle. I didn't really eat at all. Maybe a little bit of peanut butter from the MRE, but I lost about 30 pounds from just not eating and just sweating. And, there's no hunger really in those moments. But we all sit down as a platoon to eat, and you could see around us, everybody in there, all the super pogues with their leather holsters, for their pistols, their shoulder holsters. They were all like staring at us eat like savages. We all went back for seconds or thirds as well. Like we were just so hungry. And I just remember this meal. It was like the most humbling meal of, I felt like I earned that meal and everyone around me had to watch us eat because of what we all just experienced. And all the guys in my platoon, when we talk about it, we're like, man, that was the best meal of my life. We finally sat down and we finally like could peacefully eat. Obviously we had turkey, mashed potatoes, corn. I remember those little ice cream cups you can get too. I crushed like 5 of those. Just those little the Haji cans of soda that had a little pop top thing. Remember those? But I like the sun-kissed ones, the orange ones. I was so full. But that meal was the most humbling meal because it made me realize everybody in there knew where we had just been. And they all basically stared at us while we ate as savages. It's just phenomenal. We were the most tenured unit that was there for pre-battle Fallujah, then the battle, and then post-battle. 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, they went home, and we got extended with 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines as an engineer element. So when 3-4 came in, we were preparing to get set up for the first free elections for Iraq in January 2005. So at that point, we were building the city back up, cleaning things up, building out the process of reentry for all the residents that were told to leave during the battle and now allowing them to come back into the city. While we were doing that, we would build new entry control points. So ECPs, like massive ECPs with all this dirt and these barriers that we would use that they call HESCOs. During that time, we also were building the election sites with the CBs were coming out as well. As we were preparing for the election in 2005, the first free election for Iraq, we got to see the special privilege of coming from our country where we have this structure, we have this society and this democracy, and we're putting those values to someone else to now try to use. I remember seeing these folks when they were voting in the election that they couldn't write, so they would use like make your mark. Like how far beyond that are we as a country where, you know, we're writing in the names, you know, or we're filling the block. They're literally taking their mark of their finger to mark who they want to vote for on the election paperwork. It's just crazy to see and how happy these folks were. I remember all the women coming out and seeing that they were able to vote for their rights. You know, they show their fingers and this purple stain on their finger of where they got to vote. Like, that's special stuff. The human values of what were given to them, of the chance to have something to vote for. They've only known force. That's all those that were at that time in that country, they only knew force. You know, Saddam was forced upon them. I definitely think that's always a fear when we take our values somewhere else. And that's the challenge of war too. You know, we're selfish enough to say we can do something better. Well, we better commit to it and we better do the right work and better prepare them to, as a host nation, to be able to take this on when we do transition out. It's a lot easier said than done. You got to make the generation buy into it. You can't force it. When you're a boot Marine and you get buddy with the colonel, there's got to be a story behind it. So our battalion commander for 3-1, Colonel Buell, he's a prior enlisted Marine, phenomenal leader, loved his Marines. And the best thing about him is if he passed you while you're on patrol, like on a presence patrol, he'd always be smoking a cigar. And he'd always say, I remember him just pulling out a cigar out of his mouth, "How we doing, Marines?" And of course he passed me and he didn't know me because I was an attachment to his battalion. And I said, "Sir, I'd be better if I had a cigar like you." And he's like, okay, I can make that happen. I got another one in my truck. So when you get off patrol, I'll have that ready for to give you one of your staff sergeants. And I was like, "Sir, please don't do that." I was joking. "Do not give that cigar to my staff sergeant, please." And so, of course, I get back from patrol. My staff sergeant says to me, he's like, "Edwards, get over here." And I was like, "Oh, shit." He's like, what you buddy with the friggin' colonel? He dropped the cigar off for you. I was like, "Nah, I just told him I'd be better if I had a cigar like him." And he's like, "Friggin' don't talk to the colonel, okay? Do not be talking to the colonel like that." So he's like, "Put out your hand, you nasty little thing." And I put it out and he just smashes the cigar in my hand. That was the first moment that me and Colonel Buell were homies. Because every time after that, Colonel Buell would see the engineer platoon and he'd always be like, "Yo, where's Edwards at?" I'll be like, what's going on, sir? I'm right here. How you doing? As we were transitioning, getting ready for bringing the civilians back into the city right before 3-1 left, and we got extended with 3-4, our last moment, we were out right outside the city in the peninsula setting up an entry control point, and Colonel Buell comes out to check on us. He shows up. He's with his one of his lieutenants, who's like his scribe, his like little nerdy guy. And he gets out with his PSD team, personal security detail, and he just says, "Hey, where's Edwards at?" And it's like the first thing he says when he gets out of the truck. And so they called me over. They're like, "Edwards, come over here. The colonel's asking for you." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." I come over. He's like, "Hey, Lieutenant, take a picture of me and Edwards and get his email and send that shit to him so he can have that." We're standing there next to the truck, and Colonel Buell, he puts his arm around me, and I'm nobody's bitch, okay? Don't get confused. So if someone's got their arm on me, they're definitely about to get my arm on them. So I put my arm over his shoulder, and we take the picture. They leave, and my staff sergeant lost his mind. He's like, "Don't ever touch the colonel. You think you're buddy-buddy with the colonel." And obviously, we all know he's jealous because he wishes he was the one in the photo, not me. And so to this day, it's still one of the most memorable photos I have. I always appreciate the friendship that we still have, me and Colonel Buell have to this day, 20 years later. So Semper Fidelis, Colonel Buell, you are my friggin' homie. So coming back from a deployment like that was tough because you operated in such a way where you train as a team back home, but you went and did this massive operation so split. So it was hard for me to really look to anything that I was excited about for the job I was doing, for finding IEDs and such. So I immediately went to try to lateral move into another job because finding IEDs and all that stuff, I did it, right? Like, what more was there going to be to do in that field for me? I felt like I needed to find something else. And that's an example of, I guess, my mindset. Again, I'm never an expert, always trying to be a professional, trying to always try something new. So I got home and immediately I went on recruiter's assistance orders and put in a lateral move to go into intel. Because while I was deployed, I got to work with a lot of intel units for human intelligence, and they had an amazing job. They literally they're planning all the stuff that we're doing on the operational field. So I put in for that, and unfortunately, my GT score was like 2 points lower than what was needed for intel. So they wanted me to retake the ASVAB, but it took almost 7 months for them to finally tell me that after I put my package in. At that point in my life, it's a lesson learned. Like, I should have done that, studied and taken it because I really wanted that. But I was so pissed off. I fell in love with motorcycles at that time. And, I was like, screw it. I ain't even worried about it anymore. Screw them. I'm not taking that thing again. I'm not going to go study this because it's 2 points. So I ended up just dropping out of all that opportunity to lateral move. And I stayed in my reserve unit helping the next platoons that would deploy to be prepared for their deployments. During that time is when I started college too. And, growing up, like I talked about my childhood, switching schools so much, education was not something I cared about. I just basically got by with like a C average for everything I did in high school. So going to college was something that I really wanted to do, but I was unsure of what direction I wanted to go. So I just took general classes at a community college and worked full-time back at a restaurant, like a little local bar with some of my friends, and was just riding motorcycles all the time. And one of the things that I realized with reserve units is that surge of the Iraq war at that time, when someone was killed, and this is what really brought perspective back to me, like from the guys I was with that died, like somebody had to bury them. Somebody had to do body watch on them when they came back home before they were buried. So being around the Central Virginia area and the Virginia area, there's a lot of Marines from the area. Virginia's a very heavily recruited state for the Marine Corps. So we had a good amount of killed in action, and a lot of funeral details got popped up, and reserve units are the ones that usually handle those. So I did a whole lot of funeral details during my reserve time while I was in college. There was one in particular. There's some Marines from my local town He was a local sports star as a high schooler, and he got hurt on his second deployment to Iraq. Got hit with an IED, and one of his arms just wasn't really mobile anymore. And he was with Wounded Warrior Battalion, and while he was on guard one night, he got drunk and he killed himself, shot himself in the head. I remember, I didn't know him at home. He was younger than me from my hometown, but I was called to be on funeral watch, on body watch for him when he was coming to the funeral home before he would get buried. So one of our reserve unit members, the I&I duties, called me and asked me if I could handle it, and I was like, sure. So part of the duty is showing up in your dress blues, and you're in uniform the whole time, and you're there to just be with the body and with the casket. Marines we don't leave anybody by themselves. And after midnight of the funeral home, I get this knock on the door, and I'm in there. There's like a couch, and I'm just gonna lay out on the couch that night and kind of sleep, kind of like back in the day, being in Fallujah, in a hasty spot, just not comfy, but just chilling. So I get off the couch and I go to the door, and it's this young Marine. It's his mother that wants to come see him before he gets buried the next day. And again, he killed himself. He shot himself in the head. He'd been dead about a week. She begged for me to let her sit with her son. I'm a 22, 23-year-old individual at this time. I'm the CO of that moment. I'm the commanding officer of that moment. Like no one else is there to tell me what to do or not. I don't know if I broke the rule or not. I don't care if I broke the rule or not. This mom came crying in the middle of the night before her son was going to be put in the ground because he just killed himself. She wanted to sit with him. So she asked me if I would fold the flag. So I folded the flag, and she wanted to open the casket to sit with him and like touch him. So I did that, opened the casket, and the smell coming out of his body being dead for a week was just, reminded me of like a Fallujah moment of all that death and nastiness. Seeing his bruised body from being shot in the head, like all the makeup they had put on him. I got her a chair and I sat her up next to his body, and I sat in the back where the couch was, probably about 30 feet away. She sat there for hours talking to her son, hugging him, touching him, talking to him. I feel like it was a moment of spiritualness for me as well, selfishly for me, because the Marines that I served with that got killed, I didn't go to one funeral for them. But all these Marines later that I did body watch for and funeral details for, I did get to go to their funeral kind of, because I saw what they all look like. The level of respect I have for all of us that raise our hand to serve in combat, we all took this blank check of send me, send my body, send my person, but our families are part of that too. I saw this mother who spent however many years with her son before he grew up and went on as his own adult to make his own decision. Like, we got to take care of these Gold Star families. We got to do what we can to bring community back and involve not just the veterans that served with them, but the families, because as we get older, that's how we better care for our communities. These war fighters, not all of them made it home, but all of them still have a story we can tell for them. And it comes from all of us doing it together. I remember I had this one guy I worked at the bar with. He was like one of the main cooks. I mean, it was tough. College was tough, but specifically, I remember some conversations with guys I work with where like I would say like, hey, I'll be like, shut up, devil. And I forget I'm not talking to a Marine. And like civilians be like, what's wrong with you? You call me devil. Like, that's so weird. I'm like, just disregard I said that. I'm sorry. Like, but like college, the challenge I had with college was I came back and I had, this is around the time when we had the housing crisis crash, 2007, 2008-ish. I remember having my economics teacher was Iranian, and he ended up like, I actually realized he was actually a good dude, but he was teaching economics and he would talk shit about like our government, president and all this stuff. And I like approached him about it because I had a problem with just this blanket statement of like, just sharing something that had no context behind it. He was basically blaming our president and our government for all the challenges and all like the economic bullshit. I called him out on it formally, and then they put out this massive press release to the entire community college about like, look, if anyone's sharing this, it's not based on personal views. It's on, professional views as an instructor in this craft, in this field, blah, blah. But I definitely had a problem with people talking shit about something that I felt like they didn't have the chance to understand nor appreciate him talking shit and basically blaming it on the war, saying our politics, our money issues were all because of the war that we were in. When you hear civilians share something about giving opinions about the war and the reason behind it without them themselves serving, now I'm at the point where I don't get involved or let those things kind of bother me. But when I was young, I felt so tied to protecting those that I saw die in combat. Like, hey, no, like this stuff's real. There's people that are defending your values here back home as a civilian that you have no idea that died for all of us for those values. At that time, that's how I looked at it. It was a value-based system. And the right for them to say that, I feel like wasn't there. But as I've gotten older, that's why we do it. We do it for all of them. We represent everyone. The time you turn your head to defending what you love and what matters to you, that's the time it starts going away. This is a nonstop cycle. We must protect what we love and take care of it. Like Ronald Reagan said, we're one generation away from losing our freedom. And that was the thing. This was when I learned I had a trigger. Like I had a short fuse of things that bothered me. I know the earlier that we can find those things and learn from them, the better prepared we are as we move through life. Because we all have triggers for different things that get us in emotional rages possibly, or that just hit a nerve. And what it really was for me with this specific schooling thing was I was finally in academia and in their environment of behind these safe, secure, formal educational walls. There's a whole lot that can be said that can influence the youth, right? Because they're there to be influenced. They're there to learn. So that's really what bothered me. I felt like it was just a blanket statement that was just his opinion as an instructor. And when I called him out on it, he literally apologized. He ended up being like one of my tightest professors after that. I took a couple more of his classes, but I think he also needed someone to call him out because he was getting a little sloppy with his communication. He even wrote an amazing reference letter for me a few years later as I tried to go to a different program. The most important value I took from my experience as a Marine in the second battle of Fallujah, collaboration. So since the last 15 years, since I've been a civilian, since I got out of the Marine Corps, I've been a formal instructor for different organizations. And one thing I took from that was I loved that it was my life experience as a kid is what really prepared me for Fallujah, moving around so much because I worked with all these different teams and I had to blindly trust someone just because they wore my same uniform because we were in that shit together. We were in the deadliest friggin' part of the world at the time. So my values I've taken from that really is just a professional path of I became a combat skills instructor as a civilian, teaching military advisors to go all around the world. And I quickly got promoted to assistant chief instructor because I had this mentality where, hey, I try to collaborate and bring people together, and the small things are what matters. At the higher level, the small things put the big things in place. I know some of the big challenges for veterans are we come back home and we fall in place in this civilian world, and the small things that were a big deal in uniform, because small things can be life-changing in combat zones and such. But I feel like a lot of us have a challenge, like the small things are what really ticks us off or gets to us. And I challenge you all out there to, whether you write down what those things are, but self-awareness for those things becomes a superpower as you age through life. I've really gotten to be more self-aware about what bothers me, and I try to de-escalate, or I try to mitigate that conflict, whether it's for myself and have like self-talk, whether it's just, hey, no, you need to get away from that, or you need to take a deep breath right now. And instead of saying something, take a breath, especially with our spouses. Okay. If you're married, it's a big one for me. Like, I'm just going to breathe on this one. I ain't going to say nothing. But Fallujah really helped me collaborate and learn how to work well with others. And that's what makes a difference when we get on when our professional paths grow and we do bigger things and better things throughout life, and we work on bigger projects and we have more skin in the game, it comes to, if you don't play nice with others, you're not going to go very far in the professional world. So I planned the 15-year Second Battle of Fallujah reunion at the National Marine Corps Museum. And I did, 5, 10, those are the big years. I did a 15-year one because a lot of us are still in the working age. Like, we're in the prime of our life as professionals. And we've lost more guys from that battle to suicide than we lost in the deadliest battle. And that bothers me, because we need to do better to help each other feel purposeful in life. And so doing a lot of events, I've raised a ton of money. I did a golf tournament to raise money for the 15-year reunion. It was phenomenal. We had over 300 people out. We had every general and every sergeant major that was in theater at the time supporting the battle speak to us, including the theater commander, General Casey, and the Corps commander, General Metz. It was a very soul-searching type of reunion. It really helped bring purpose back to the present. I did that because I was an attachment to this large infantry battalion. I wasn't with 3-1 when you go back home. And so doing this big reunion, I invited anyone who was part of the Second Battle of Fallujah in any different unit. And yeah, you might not know that person, but the important part is the Marine Corps is small. So a lot of other people served later or earlier in their careers as well. Afterwards, folks that didn't make it out, they saw, the Marine Corps Times did an article for us to promote it. The military.com or whatever, they did an article. And some other folks that didn't know me, they saw what we were doing. And specifically, one guy saw what I did and saw that I was one of the combat engineers with 3-1. And he was we just got connected a few years ago. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, I knew Brad Arms really well, the guy who you had the same recruiter with." So I got to hear Brad's story through him. And it made me really appreciate the value of the Pogues being attached to the grunts, and how some of us really create these connections when we're out there with them. And Brad was able to do that with this grunt that was with Indy Company. And he was like, man, he was a phenomenal person. He was like, we would talk a lot. But it's just cool that, like, my effort in doing other things led to someone else coming out of their shell. So suicide in the veteran community is a huge part of why I do a lot of veterans events. I want folks to come together. And coming together in person is where we have the best therapy, that warrior therapy, as Sergeant Major Kent calls it. But suicide is such a challenge because it could be stuff from a family issue. It could be a personal issue. It could be an injury. I lost my uncle, killed himself during COVID. He was the Vietnam veteran. He was having horrible Agent Orange exposure, and his heart was so damaged. And he killed himself during COVID. And I don't think he did it because he wanted to take himself out. I think he did it because his body was shutting down and he didn't want to put that burden on anybody else. That still is something that we'll always have to live with as a family now. But veteran suicide is something where, if I could put a common denominator to help everyone out there in a blanket statement, is find something in life that you can pursue that helps you feel purpose and provides passion for the energy that you put in. I've had some guys I served with take their lives. One last year, Ben Lewis, one of our engineers, young family. He was a law enforcement officer after his time in the Marine Corps. He took his life last year, and it's terrible. Got kids same age as mine. Just terrible. And then some of the grunts I served with in the Second Battle of Fallujah took their lives. So personally, I'm known a good amount. I can relate to the energy and the emotion of someone being at the point of self-harm. And again, I think the important thing to speak on that moment is it's a moment. It's something that will go away. It will change. But I know that when we get stuck in these moments, sometimes we feel like we'll never get out. And I think that's the point where a lot of folks are taking that moment to take their life. And I've been there myself. I've never ever wanted to harm myself, but I've been in a moment where I can see, like, I could pause right now and say, I could see where this could go a little bit deeper right now. And this is where that moment would be for self-harm. That comes through self-awareness. Also, like, drugs, alcohol, those things are only poisoning your body. Give your body the stuff that gives it life. People, food, water, like the good stuff out there, and movement. Like, movement is the best thing. And if you are ambulatory challenged and you can't move because of an injury, find something that you can do outside, something that brings energy of life to your life. And that's how we can thrive in this world after combat. Because post-combat, sometimes some people say they'd rather be in the combat than back home in this calmness. You got to find that medium for yourself. And again, we're out there for these events. I'll do anything for anybody. So anytime you can reach out to me, my company, Threat Response, hit us up. We would love to help out anybody we can. My experience as a young Marine in heavy combat helped lead me to finding the life I have now. So for the last 15 years, I've been an instructor. It started out, I was a civilian instructor teaching combat skills because that was my therapy for myself. I was able to teach folks to go to combat. That was my own therapy. And I did that for the military. And then in 2017, I started my company called Threat Response. And we also have a DBA, so doing business as lead tactics. And we do training all around the country. I have multiple instructors on my team. And we get to go out and mostly work with schools because our schools, most states require our kids to train these active violent drills and prepare for these violent situations, but they're not learning these things the best way. They're learning them in a very one-way option of hiding. But all of us that have been through heavy combat, we know that options are what matters when you have fear of death or great bodily harm. When you're under attack, you need to have options, never absolutes. So in my company, we get to do that. We also do workplace violence training. We do de-escalation of conflict and conflict management training for different organizations around the country. And it's an honor just to give back and help prepare folks for scary moments in life. When I'm in a trainer and I can share stories about deadly situations or chaotic situations, it's great to explain to a group that are scared, like, look, fear is natural, but courage, though, is a decision. We should never add fear to ourselves when we're preparing for a scary situation. We should learn how to respect those fears, be better prepared to respond in that specific situation. So again, my company, Threat Response, we are growing, and it's just great to be able to give back to our nation in a different way. So you can find us, our website is threatresponsetraining.com. We have Threat Response on LinkedIn. We have my other companies called Lead Tactics on Instagram and Lead Tactics on Facebook. But we do a lot of community events. We do defensive tactics training, so shooting firearms and combatives. And then we also do community events around for reunions. If you were a second Battle of Fallujah veteran or in the area supporting that direct battle, on November 16th, we have a reunion at the National Marine Corps Museum. We'll have a registration coming out soon for that. Just an honor to keep the legacy going and bring everybody together, because that's how we grow, that's how we thrive, is together. As I grow older, the more and more opportunity I get to help the next generation. So I want to challenge the veterans out there to, if you put that uniform up, that doesn't mean that you can't help the next generation of those warfighters. So please help the young, our youth, learn about your service: Air Force, Marine Corps, Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Space Force. I know you're new, but still please help this next generation, because a lot of them, if we had challenges with our recruiter, I'm telling you right now, the recruiters, they haven't gotten better. So please help our next generation. I've helped so many folks join the military. And this is what I tell folks that want to be a Marine. I say, look, be a Marine if you want to be a Marine. If you don't want to be a Marine, there's some other services that can take you. But if it's in your heart to be a Marine, and don't question it. Go be a Marine. If you don't have to be infantry, you can be any other job. Get a specialty that will give you something to do also on the outside. Okay. But if you want to be a grunt, I wasn't a grunt, but I started with them. Grunts are definitely the highlight of the Marine Corps. Okay. They're the ones everybody wants to be like, and everyone wants to look at. So if you want to be a grunt and be a celebrity, go be a grunt. But there's plenty of other jobs too you can pick.